I think the question is, you want to do something to improve the learning of your students, or you want to do something which will maintain the same level of learning with you doing less work, if you're knackered, say. And you've got to decide what to do. How will you decide what to do? Well, okay, it is possible to say, well, can you be sure that this person's cooperative learning is the same as that one? And how do we know that it wasn't biased and whatever? What we could say is that if you take all the evidence you can get hold of and crunch the numbers together and take the average, and some things come out higher on the list, you probably got the best evidence available. And otherwise, what else are you going to do? You're probably going to make your own value judgment. And what you'll probably do is what most people do, is they'll pick the evidence that fits their preconception. So the other thing is that I think I decided some time ago not to try to persuade people who were doubting that when we do training sessions, particularly when people are really close to the students, if you take effective primary school teachers, they are probably the experts in the whole country. I can't remember a single incident of a highly effective teacher seriously questioning what the evidence shows. They immediately go, yeah, that's what I do. So if you're doubtful, well, do whatever you think. I don't want to be too rude, but there doesn't seem to be much connection between academics and evidence.
Right.
They
obviously Hattie and people like that are academics, aren't they? I mean,
yes.
Cher and AD are quite serious academics, aren't they? But
yes, Hattie was not an educationalist though, he's just looking at the statistics.
Yeah. And he's more quantitative in approach, whereas many academic researchers are qualitative, aren't they? You know, they're looking at doing case studies and interviews and things like that.
I think intellectually there are like two bands. I mean, we tend to call it scientific. I tend to keep away from the word scientific and use the word evidence, because the word scientific puts off non-scientific people. But that, you know, in this university, all the people who do engineering and medicine and whatever, you could sit around and all agree on methodologies. But as soon as you go into the sort of economics and social sciences and philosophy, you get a completely different mindset. And most educational research is in that mindset. Again, I don't have the experience, but I remember Michael Cher telling me that he thought that most educational research didn't go near the classroom.
No. Well, it's often looking at it sociologically, isn't it, in a different way,
Yes, or producing, you know, the argument is all so-and-so said this, and...
Sometimes, though, that qualitative research, you know, just with doing a PhD in education and myself, can be very helpful for teachers, can't it? You know, just describing what's going on with certain...
I can't comment on that because I haven't done it myself.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to me to be much connection between the level of thinking about education which a teacher has done and their effectiveness as a teacher.
Yeah.
Many of the most...
Yeah, it's not... And I think many of these researchers will say that they're not really interested in raising standards. It's about describing what's there, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, I'm heavily prejudiced in the direction of neuroscience. I think that most educational theories were what you might call educated guesswork, at a time when we couldn't know any better than educated guesswork. And now I'm not really bothered what the theorists think. I'd sooner have a look on a brain scan or...
Although quite a lot of what you're saying does link up with recent thinking, you know, even post-structuralist thinking. I was thinking, you know, even a French philosopher like Deleuze is saying almost identical things about similarities and differences. For example, that we learn through analogy and we learn, but they've come at it from a totally different angle. So there are some quite interesting links.
I mean, it's bound to be the case that among all these educational psychologists, some of them will have come up with the right answer.
Yeah.
I can't be more helpful than that because I'm kind of anti-intellectual.
Anti-intellectual.
In that field.
In that field. You don't feel it's helpful at all?
I don't know enough about it. I'm not attracted to it. And I remember when I showed Jeff Petty's book to Michael Shea. He read the book through and he said, "This is a fantastic book." He said, "The question is, why did Jeff Petty write it? Why wasn't this information given to us by the Department of Education at Cambridge University? What are they doing?"
What are they doing? Yeah,
what are they doing?
But it is a good point. It is quite mystifying, isn't it? But again, I was thinking, I, as a head of department, I had maybe nearly 10 years of the National Literacy Strategy. I don't quite know what research that was based on, but quite a bit of it doesn't tie in with what you're saying.
Doesn't.
Some does, but most of it.
Like the numeracy strategy, which is to try and get young children to engage with numbers younger. But the evidence is almost to the contrary.
Yeah.
That they need to do more sand and water play, and they need to do numbers with bricks before they do them with. And the process of translating their knowledge, their prior knowledge about sharing out a cake or cutting up a cake or sharing out sweets, is the point that Jeff Petty makes, that many adults struggle with division, or the idea of fractions and decimals and what have you. But actually they know how to share out sweets and they know how to cut up a cake. And all you really need to do is to link that prior knowledge with this sort of formal thing of a line with a dot above and a dot below.
Again, it's analogy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Back to analogy, teaching by analogy.
Yeah.
And also sort of graphical organisers and making connections, isn't it? But what were they doing with the billions of pounds spent, and where did they get the research from?
I don't think they did. I think they thought, okay, if children start learning earlier, then by 7 they'll know more than if they start learning at 4 rather than 5, then by 7 they'll know more.
Yeah.
But even on reading, countries that don't teach children to read till they're 7, I think 80% of them learn between September and Christmas.
Yeah.
Obviously lots of them are learnt just because they liked.
Yeah.
They point to the word and say, "What does that say, Mummy?" So some kids learn just on Mummy's lap, sort of thing. But
yeah. So it's again, there's a sort of worrying gap between what actually works and what actually is promoted.
As I discovered that, I became more and more shocked that in this area, which takes, I don't know, whatever it is, a sixth of our GDP, or tax revenues or something, and every single child goes through it, that it was largely guesswork.
And if you think of all the billions of pounds that have been spent on all the different initiatives, if they just freed up a bit more time for teachers to reflect on practice, for trained teachers in
1 hour a week.
Because this stuff has, Petty's been talking about this for some time, hasn't he? It's not, and Shea and Ady too, since the 70s, 80s, so they knew, didn't they? Someone knew. But
yes, but we didn't know which people knew.
Yeah.
But I think from Hattie's work...
increasing awareness about Hattie and his work, isn't there now?
Yeah.
But the trouble is, it's not very teacher-friendly, is it? It's full of charts and graphs.
I think that's where the Education Endowment Foundation will be quite clever, because they have actually created a graphical organiser. Their page on the website shows the number of pound signs for the cost and the number of stars for the effect. And what's nice is that they've gone through the research again, they've done an independent reassessment, and they haven't come up with a different list from Hattie.
No.
You could say maybe Hattie's team were biased in some way, but it appears not.